Is that two?
Hello.
Sunglasses, my top end is $15.99.
Someday I'm gonna be old and we're up like a big 50 boxes, pairs of readers.
You know what? I'll bet Goodwill probably has a vat of readers. You think about it?
They got any for 50 cents or something.
Sure they do.
$10 at Walmart.
They probably have sunglasses too. You know, I bought a pair of shoes. I can be pretty value oriented, let's say. I happen to really like Merrill shoes, and they're like 125 up there. I said, look, here they are online, and they look great. They were used shoes. My husband thought I was insane. He said, that's like when you go bowling, they have to disinfect those. I'm telling you, great shoes for like running outside, walking the
Yeah.
dog in the barn.
Already
short
broken.
little- And you know, I went to year 2 with them, and I got them for like $50
Oh my
rather
goodness.
than paying 125.
And so you don't feel bad if you step on something.
And you know what? I'm fine with used clothes.
That's awesome.
Well, it's the reality of living in Germantown, you know, if you live here, you gotta be like frugal.
That's my mother was like
I
that.
had a line in my back when you said, you know, say about Germantown, I said, what, it was, you discover every newspaper you could find for $1 on a fish fry. There it
That's true.
Make copies.
And then you'd argue about it costing too much, you know, because that's part of it.
But when I said, yeah, but the old fashioned, we don't complain about that, it's $12, we got to have something about that.
That's funny. But when it comes to my dog, you know, I order these treats online at Costco. And honestly, I don't know, because it's all just junk, you know, from the cow and stuff, like the hide. And he loves these things called shish kebabs. They come, yeah, and he just loves them. And so he gets one almost every night, I have to admit. They're like $2 each. If you just can't add it up, you have to just let it go and say, this is something I want to spend my money on.
See, but it's, and then there's people who, so like I look on the bottle of Bailey on sale, it's $28.
That's
You
crazy.
can buy the Kirkland brand, you can buy like a 750 milliliter bottle for 15. So I give Bailey's to I call it Bailey's to my family, they have no idea about, well, that's pretty good, yeah, no kidding, because you don't know what it is, it's alcohol, and you're drinking it.
Yeah, put in coffee or whatever.
Right.
But now when you gift it,
Yeah,
then you
Oh,
gotta spring
gift
for the
it to
expensive
Andy.
stuff.
give it to Bailey, give everybody else, gives.
Yeah, fine with that.
You know, after a class of that, what do you care about it?
Totally fine with that.
Good, I'm not the only one that's good.
No, honestly, I think if I were an animal, I'd be a pigeon. Because I just can adapt to whatever. Oh, that's what we're eating tonight? Okay.
See, I don't like the word cheap, it's frugal.
Or value oriented.
There, I like that even better.
I'm gonna use that later.
Value oriented. So,
No, the conversation is making me understand. That's up to the chair. I did my part.
Well, you saw how I got filled with, they've been reading something with the record for public works. Nice.
Okay, it's okay.
You know, it's like some of this, like, this is a long one. This person must be retired.
I got 200 emails from her over the weekend, and I usually get about 3 a week. So, Terry, just so you know, we have a little technical issue. The channel 25 should work fine. The WebEx, the sound is working, but the interface between the cameras and WebEx is down. We were working on it this afternoon. We contacted an IT guy, contacted Global. Yeah, now Brian is futzing around with it, and
Brian, anybody.
pretty
thinks
handy.
Brian.
right. But yeah, so,
I was gonna ask you about the streetlights.
but
They're all off, like coming up here, or do they go on at like 6 o'clock?
no, they should be
You
up.
notice that's got- They're coming in, like,
Okay.
I just got in from the east.
Yes, they're always off.
This whole big.
Oh, really?
Streetlights all the way down, it's not working.
Never out this early.
Yeah. I think about,
Good answer.
maybe they belong in six or something.
Some people in take the village utility dollars. Am I sitting in the box? Oh, God, here. It's cheap of places. They go, long story, but it's kind of like when I'm late for a work. Firemen to the police. They pick one thing. Two needs. I think like a dollar. That little thing. But if that were, but if it were like 200. And we film them. These look like ones that you guys just. Oh, just one thing.
Do you have a copy of it? Oh, wait, that's a print body.
Yeah, I'm ready. All right, we'll call this meeting of the General Government and Finance Committee to order at 6:01 PM. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with Section 19.83 and 19.84 Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call, all members present except for Trustee Nyrider, and I believe we will be expecting him yet. I do want to mention that we do have some technical difficulties on WebEx. The video is not operational tonight. The audio is working. Is that correct? And we are streaming on channel 25 Spectrum. So hopefully you can utilize one of those to receive the information. With that, we will move on to approval of the minutes of November 21st, 2022.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. I have a motion. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With that, we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment for general government and finance?
Button one on. It works.
It works either.
It's the opposite. Okay, I'm used to turning off the whatever. Scott Heffley, W159 N10514, Old Farm, Germantown. Just a couple quick comments. I know the GGF is looking over the budget and based on, what I've been looking at, I'm a budget guy, so I hope the budget isn't completely done and we're just moving on because there's a lot of holes in the budget from the standpoint of year-end numbers and that. So just a couple to bring up. Maybe not a hole in the budget, but, our numbers are creeping up in several areas. The budget for engineering fees was 55,000 for this year, and the year-to-date's 192. And I know we're outsourcing a lot of engineering, but I think for that kind of money, we can hire somebody or try to, maybe even overpay them to bring them in, because it's certainly cheaper than paying consultants. That's the way it is in the real world. Also, highway department engineering, almost 20,000 in that budgeted, and we're at 75.7. Again, these are numbers, 250% variances. We need to look at that and see if there's something we can do to address that. One and near to dear to my heart is interest on investments. Okay, this is a number that's used as a plug number so many times. Okay, budgeted $138,000 for interest on investment. That's never going to be the case. The interest rates are up, but not to the point where you're going to get a bunch of money out of there, because year to date, according to the budget, is 22,000. So let's quit kidding ourselves and thinking we're getting $130,000 on our short-term investments. It doesn't work that way. I couldn't do that. I don't know anybody that could do that, not at least legally. So these are the things we need to dig into. Okay. I still see that apparently we're budgeting 90,000 for the police for overtime for 2022. Maybe even 2023. We know that that's not going to work. We heard from the chief. Also for fire, 60,000. We know that that number's not going to work. But the interesting thing is that we have 0 entered fiscal year to date for the actual number. So is the actual number going to be input? Because that's the only way you can budget effectively. And then the final thing is, I guess I have a minute left, but I talk fast, so that works. For the water utility, that really confuses me. And as this committee knows, I'm on the utility advisory. I pay attention and I'm trying to learn. But the meter numbers, residential 1.377 million, year to date 427,000. I have a hard time believing that's a hard number. We need hard numbers to be able to see where we're at as a village and budget forward. Metered commercial 547,000, year to date 181,000. Those can't be the right numbers. I just don't think they are. So if someone can show me the right numbers, I'd really appreciate it, being that I'm on the Utility Advisory Committee. Also, final one, industrial, 498,400 metered industrial, showing year-to-date fiscal 119,209. I'm hoping all these numbers will be updated after 12/31, and we'll have actual numbers for the board to look at, because I know you approved a budget to get something out there so you could do property taxes, but this is not over. There's no way you can say that this budget's fine and we're all good with it. I don't think that that's the case. So if I'm missing something, don't know something, need to be updated on something, I'm always available and people know how to get a hold of me. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Anyone else here for public comment? All right, if not, we will move on to new business item A, vacation accrual for Captain Merton.
Thank you. As you know, we recently went to a different method of accruing vacation, and that went into effect this last July. I think Captain Merton was in a bit of a unique situation, so that he not only maxed out, but he went over that maximum accrual this last paycheck, and I believe it was at 5 hours. Lieutenant Merton had rolled over 5 days from the previous year because he simply wasn't able to use those days with the amount of retirements we had in the command staff. Some of the lieutenants weren't able to use all their days. Also considered that he's a January hire, so he started accruing in January. So basically, by the time this went into effect in July, he was already over his maximum accrual numbers, and was then in a position where we were kind of saying, you got to start using vacation now. He gets that. He's off for the rest of the year, as a matter of fact, because of that, so he can use some of those days he had not anticipated taking off, but he knows he's over the max. I am just looking for some type of consideration to get back the 5 hours that he basically was not credited for because he went over that accrual. I think it was something that won't happen moving forward, and something that was in part because it was new, and there was a number of circumstances, the vacation rolled over, and the fact that he was accruing since January.
Just a question, you said 5 hours, isn't it 5 days? Or how, what are
His
we
would
looking at?
his would have been about 5 hours.
5 hours?
Yeah, just X amount of hours per paycheck, but he had went over that cap. So when they do the computation, they came out to about 5 hours.
We have something similar where I work, where you max out and you can't accrue anymore. Yes, trustee Myers?
Is he looking for pay or vacation time?
Just to get the 5 hours credited back to his accrual.
And make a motion to that effect.
All right, we have a motion. Any discussion on that? Well, this is really just going back for additional vacation, not for payout.
That's correct, just for this, and again, he's taking days right now so that he, the max.
So he'll be under and then this will, okay.
Correct.
Trustee Kaminsky.
We don't anticipate, Chief Snow, this happening again. There's nobody else in this situation.
No, and we're going to review it again department-wise. It is new, something different for a lot of us, but I think there's a better understanding now of how it works, so I don't anticipate this problem moving forward.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Second here. With that, we'll move on to new business item B, resolution 43-2022, building permit and inspection fee revision. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I
was waiting for an introduction.
I apologize.
Sorry. Yes, I have put before you a draft resolution with a revised fee schedule addressing certain building permit and inspection fees charged under our building code, plumbing code, and electrical code. I was here last before you back in the fall of 2018 with a similar request to revise certain fees that eventually went into effect in January of 2019. This proposal is intended to go into effect on January 1st of 2023. So a 4-year time period from which we had since revised some of the fees that are now proposed for revision in this particular fee schedule. I worked on this with the Safe Built staff, our building permit management and inspection contractor. They have been pushing to increase certain fees to help the village cover their costs, our costs in turn, and also adjust some of the calculation methodology for some of the fees that better reflect how their costs are borne through inspections and the like. So with that, I would refer your attention to attachment A to the proposed resolution that includes a listing on the left column of all of the permit and inspection fee types or description. In the middle column is the current fee, and on the far right is the proposed fee or any revision. Anything that's highlighted in the far right column reflects a proposed revision. Those items that are not highlighted will remain the same as they are currently assessed. I don't know how you would like me to proceed at this point. Do you want me to jump right in and go through these line by line, or have you had a chance to take a look and maybe have some questions that we can address up front?
Yeah, I think that's probably the better way to go. I did see the notice close to the top where it says the $1,000 per valuation is only going to be used when you can't use square footage.
Correct.
On that, or it's at the discretion of the building inspector.
Yes.
Typically it's by square foot, isn't it?
Currently, we have sort of a either or situation with the building inspector discretion. This is intended to make it more clear that we're using square foot principally. And unless there is the ability or not the ability to calculate square footage, or as you indicated in the opinion of the building inspector, using the valuation is a better methodology. I'm going to give you an example of something we just went through in the last few weeks. The Holiday Inn Express, formerly Holiday Inn Express on County Line Road, is going through some remodeling. You may recall earlier this year, the Plan Commission had approved an addition to add a floor
Yep.
to the building. A couple years ago, the proposal was actually to add 2 floors, and they got permission through their Plan Development District revision to do that. They came back and said, no, we're only going up 1 floor. About a month and a half ago, it was discovered that they had started work internally remodeling without any permits at all. And so we approached them, we stopped the work, and we started negotiating what exactly needed to be permitted, because there was a lot of back and forth about new furnishings and how that shouldn't be calculated, which we agreed to. Be that as it may. At the end of the day, we came back with, and based on the building inspector discretion, to approach it from a valuation standpoint. So we asked for them to give us a valuation of the project cost. And they gave us a figure that was extremely low, unreasonably low. And the valuation methodology, frankly, historically has been sort of an honor system, not just employed by us, but
You don't
other
see
communities
invoices
as
or
well.
anything, it's
And they
just-
sort of rely on the building inspector to review that and say whether or not that seems reasonable or not. Clearly, we thought it was unreasonable. The argument was, well, we're a big chain. We have access to, lower costs in our purchasing through bulk purchasing by the mothership and that sort of thing. At the end of the day, we worked out a more appropriate fee based on valuation, but it took a lot of teeth pulling to come to a conclusion to get a reasonable valuation for the effort. I mean, at the end of the day, a project that was told earlier this year that was going to cost $5 million that had increased to $8 million over the course of a 4-month period because of construction costs, they decided to just remodel the interior and do some minor work without permits, but we took care of that. But to lowball us on the valuation to the point where it was literally a $65 permit just did not make any sense to the amount of inspections that we're going to have to do to ensure compliance with the commercial building code. So that's the reason for trying to clarify this particular statement with regard to square footage versus valuation.
Sure. And Safe Built gets paid a percentage of the total permit. Is that correct? Or-
Yes, they get 62% of most of the permit fees. The village gets 38%.
Any questions? Trustee Myers?
Well, Jeff, as you know, at the last meeting, after the meeting, I had a discussion with you in regard to one item, and looking on page 6, the second last item, in regard to the penalty, you either took my suggestion or you already had it in there. And that's my only question, because at that last meeting, we had 3 people out of 6 that were on the agenda that didn't take permits out. It was ridiculous. So I suggested that we triple the fee, and I see you have that in there.
Yes, it was a little bit of both.
Okay.
We're heading in that direction. We're trying to do something. Safe Bill had recommended that because of the amount of activity, it's picking up where people are just not asking about pulling permits. The standard, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission.
Well, thank you for putting it on. I appreciate it. I would make a motion to accept this as presented.
I'll second for discussion.
All right. We have a motion on the table. Trustee Kaminsky.
Jeff, it looks like most of these haven't changed at all, correct? very few, if I'm
correct.
looking at this correctly.
The more important ones are proposed for revision, frankly. When I say important, the ones that tend to generate the higher amount of fees.
And I know this isn't on the agenda for tonight, but at some point in the future, can we take a look again at hiring our own people for this versus continuing with this firm? I know it's a contract, correct, for another year or so?
That's correct.
Okay, so at that point, we'll look anyway. But just to answer questions out there, because people who weren't on board when we did this, because we had to do this, and it was the only reasonable way to do this, would not know why we're doing it. So it's probably good, probably wouldn't hurt to revisit again, at least at this committee level.
I absolutely agree with you. Our intention 3 years ago was principally to improve the quality of the service that we provided compared to what we were providing. And I truly believe that we've done that. But it didn't come without a cost. And that cost is the 62-38 split. Now, granted, when we first talked about it, we negotiated what I consider to be a very good percentage split. A lot of communities with Safe Build, it's a 90-10. So I think we did fairly well in that regard. But yes, I agree with you. It's worth looking at, if not every year, every other year, to see where we can maybe jump back in with our own staff in an effort to recover a greater amount of our fees that we generate.
Just a follow-up comment on that, people that I know, at least in the residential area, who are remodeling, they're telling me that the permitting process and the inspection process has been so good. So I mean, that is something that, I don't have no idea what's happening on the commercial side, but I've heard a lot of compliments about how efficient it's been for them to move ahead with their project.
That's good to hear.
Or maybe in the past, it wasn't quite so much that way.
Wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, we have a motion on the table for Resolution 43-2022, and to be clear, this has to go through Village Board for approval, so this would be for a positive recommendation.
Correct.
Go to the Village Board. Any other discussion? No. If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, there is no unfinished business tonight, so with that, we'll move on to reports. Monthly financial summary, we have accounts payable for November 17th, 21st, 25th, December 2nd, and December 9th, those 5 weeks. Any questions on that or any thing you want to review? Trustee Myers.
I only had one question because Deanna has given me some of the codes and so on, so I'm able to take care and look at them individually and know what departments they're coming from. That helps me a lot. So thank you again in that area. The only question I had was in regard to which was somewhat brought up this evening and such, was in regard to the interest on our accounts or in the ARCA funds per se. Where does that interest end up going? What fund, what line would I find that on?
And I guess I would kind of be under the report too, the year-to-date budget comparisons.
Okay, I can wait until that. I can wait till that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can move on to that. I was already there.
Okay. And actually, I was going to touch base a little bit on the earnings on investments and how that works. So the village has, some pretty significant amount of cash available at various points in the year. We have, for the general fund, for example, I believe the number is approximately $8 million in reserves at this point. I believe it's about $6 million in reserves for the sewer utility. The water utility has a smaller amount, but they have some reserves. There's also and those are funds that really don't change a whole lot from year to year generally. They may increase or decrease a little bit, but there's a significant amount of funds to invest there. There's also cash flow investments. So for right now, the village is taking in property tax collections, and we'll collect, in addition to our own $12 million this year. We'll collect the property tax taxes for the school and for the county, the other taxing jurisdictions. And there will be a short period of time where we'll be holding that money, and it'll be, so there's all different kinds of investments. There's some longer term investments for those reserves, and then there's some shorter term investments for some of the cash flow type investments. The ARPA funds are set up in a special fund right now. And within the general fund. So when all of those monies are pooled for investment purposes, and then the interest is allocated out to each one of those other funds. So the funds, whether it's the sewer utility, the water utility, the general fund, just to try to maximize the return that we get, they're all invested together. And then ARPA funds would be included with that. And then there's an allocation process that takes place kind of when staff has time to. It's a manual process, and then there are manual entries into the system to try to put those on a particular line item. And as the committee's well aware, we are behind on some of those entries. And that's why when you're looking at, like for the general fund, the earnings on investments, and I have to kind of scan through here to find that particular line. I can try to do that while I'm talking. Those general fund investments would show up in that line item. And that is, let's see, it's under taxes. It's under, I believe it's page, if you're looking in the packet, page 98. It's under miscellaneous revenues, page 98. It's the first line on page 98, and actually does show a budget of $138,000. ARPA, the interest earned on ARPA would show up in that line. There's some catch up that we need to do on these reports to do those allocations and then enter them into the system. That's one of the things that I think we hope to get some improvements on when we implement Tyler Munis, but that is a ways away. But there's some function, some of the systems have some functionality, some logic built in that'll do this automatically. At this point, it's a manual process. And if I could, just a little bit more on the earnings on investments, since we kind of got into that topic a little bit. So also we have an investment firm, Ehlers, who you see one side of their business here pretty often with Phil Cossin. They also have an investment management component to their business, and they handle the investment of our cash. They check in with Deanna and myself, the village clerk treasurer, and myself on a regular basis when investments are maturing, and let us know what the options are, make recommendations, and then we give them those decisions, and we do get monthly statements from them on what those earnings are. All of those investments are also regulated by state statute. So the state of Wisconsin sets up some limitations on what we can invest money in. There's limitations on the term of the investments. I believe it's 3 years is the longest thing that we're allowed to invest in. And then the type of investments. We're not allowed to invest in anything where it's possible to lose the principal. So it's things like some municipal bonds, a lot of treasuries, some CDs in cases, but very conservative things like that. But it is, with interest rates going up, there is more capacity to try to, where we will earn something. And just based on even though it doesn't reflect, it's not reflected in the reports, based on what we've been getting in from Ehlers on those monthly reports, I think once it gets allocated, we'll probably be in excess of the $138,000 that's budgeted for this year.
If I could just add something, the other component to this is safeguarding those monies too. So there's letters of credit to offset them. So for instance, I just increased our letters of credit for the tax collection purposes. So while I understand it's important to allocate the interest, I do get that. I'm also trying to protect what we have. That's a very big deal to safeguard what we have in place.
Go ahead.
Trustee Kaminsky.
You can go back.
Just a quick question. We could probably just call Ayers. I mean, they do report to us just about every year and just ask them where we're at according to this budget, correct? So we'd all have a clear idea or,
Unfortunately, they don't have all of the information to tie it to the budget. What they can tell us is, okay, there's several different funds, but but they don't know which portion of it goes to the general fund, which portion of it goes to the sewer utility. That's something that staff has to do.
Trustee Myers?
I'd say I would be interested to know what type of funds that they put it in, not necessarily on the back end where we put it in, but what funds those are in, what months, like I said, some of the stuff is going to be in a short term, maybe 3 months or whatever per se. And then whatever interest is actually gaining per se. If that's something that we could see, I would appreciate it.
We could definitely invite them to a future meeting and have them come in and give a presentation. I think they'd be happy to do that.
they come once a year anyway, don't they? Or is it every 2 years?
I think on the investments.
No, not investment, never had that.
No, everything, and they have come. I know they have been here
I remember
before.
sitting through these.
GGF. I think everything got a little bit off kilter with COVID and not everything has got back on schedule.
Time for another meeting. Yeah.
I will give it just another example. We've been working closely with them on the investment of the bonds that were issued for the DPW building. And we have from more construction, a detailed cash flow projection for the project. So they're looking at there's actually 42 million in bonds, and then there was a premium that we received on that. So they're looking at the cash that's available. We have the cash flow projection for more construction, and then Ehlers is investing that. And I think the initial estimate was over $800,000 in interest earnings that we'll achieve during the construction process by looking at when we're going to need the cash and then trying to maximize what we can get in a return for it until those invoices will probably be due.
Just right now, this budget versus actual, it's a year to date, but it's year to date as of last Friday, December 16th, when the report was run.
It's year to date for that date on
What's
what was
booked,
posted,
not
what was
what's
booked.
posted.
Correct. Correct.
And just as a caveat here, we are going to have an item on the village board meeting tonight regarding where we are with the 2021 review and where that stands and a few other things. So it will be, I'm not going to take time to do it here because it's a presentation that's already in the packet for village board tonight.
The one other thing if I could mention for the committee is just there's also an item on the agenda. This report is showing up on the village board agenda as well. This is a report that GGF gets every month.
Yep.
Sometimes we go through it in more detail when there's time, like tonight. We've had a lot of heavy meetings lately where there's an hour and we've gotten, it's 7:05, 7:10, and we're just getting to these items, so there hasn't been much discussion, but it's presented every month. It's available online on the agenda every month. We'd be happy to put this on the village board as well every month, if that would be helpful. The one caveat would be what do you want to delegate to the committees? What do you want to have at the full village board level?
Personally, I don't see that that's necessary. That's part of the GGF. That's part of our committee. And it's available. It's part of the packet that is out there for public knowledge. So I don't see a need to duplicate that.
I would agree.
Yes, Trustee Myers.
I was going to say, when you had mentioned in regard to Ehlers investments, which is new to me, are they the only one that we have investments with?
There are investment managers, so they're not, the investments are not with them. They use, Ameritrade is probably the largest group. And then within that fund that they're trading in, then there's a lot of specific individual investments that are made. So Ehlers they're not holding the funds. They're our advisor.
Custodian. They're a financial planner advisor on the funds.
Right.
I was just wondering if there was any other one. Go ahead, Deanna.
And then we also have a local government type of accounts as well. That's very safe besides that, but it's not really an investment, but it's more of a
You
very
mean bank
safe,
accounts like
very safe
savings or a
account.
small CD or?
It's actually
accounts.
it's the local government investment pool. It's run by the state of Wisconsin.
Oh,
So
I see.
that's a little
I
bit
didn't
more
realize.
liquid. So if there's, if there's a large payment coming up and it doesn't make sense to invest it with Ayers, they may transfer it into there where it's into the local government investment pool where it's still earning something more than our checking account, but it's a little bit more liquid. That's, I forgot to mention, that was good Deanna did.
And from those accounts, it's easier to make the debt payments and that kind of transaction from those accounts.
Thank you. Learning a lot tonight.
Yeah, I didn't realize that existed. Any other questions on or comments? That was good information. Thank you. If not, we'll move on to violation report, community development violations, code violations. Doesn't look like much has changed, if anything.
And we do, if you have any questions, we do have with Director Retzloff here, we have kind of a special guest who's able to answer any questions you might have on this report much better than I would be able to. So,
You want to talk about any, Jeff? Anything else?
Just make a comment.
Oh, yeah, Trustee Myers.
I was going to say, at the last meeting, I talked about things on this particular nature as such, so I'd like to, glad to see this and then in any of the other ones that we have also per se.
Next month, the schedule would be the contract report. So we have those reports on a schedule. So next month's schedule would be the contract update report.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do these quarterly. With that, we are through our agenda items and we will schedule our next meeting. Our next regularly scheduled meeting would be January 16th, if that's okay with the committee. Is that all right? So we'll schedule the next meeting on January 16th, 2023, getting close to the end of the year, at 6 p.m. in this boardroom. And with that, we will adjourn at 6:35. Thank you. Oh, is it? Is that MLK?
According to my new calendar.
Is that a work day here? It is not. But it's not a holiday. It's not okay. Okay, then we'll leave it at that. All right, thank you. And with that, now we'll adjourn at 6:36.
Hello?
Maybe texted her, wasn't she?
Yeah.
My aunt, Eve, who just retired on Friday, tested positive for COVID today. Oh, we had
Yeah, I haven't quite gotten there yet. They're doing a whole presentation today on all the mistakes on the sewer bill.
I'd like to call to order the regular village board meeting on Monday, December 19th at 7:04 PM. President Walter is on his way. I'll go ahead and read. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with Section 19.83 and 19.84 in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Shows that present are Trustee Myers, Trustee Baum, Trustee Jan Miller, Trustee Hudson, Trustee Rick Miller, and Trustee Kaminsky. If I could have a motion to elect a pro tem, please.
To make a motion to elect Dave Baum, pro tem.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, I'd ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Announcements of forthcoming events of public interest committee and department reports. We will start with Trustee Kaminsky.
Okay, Public Works will meet in this building on Wednesday, I believe it was. It was, yeah, because we couldn't meet the first week, so it'd be the 11th.
Okay. Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance met tonight, and we will meet again on January 16th in this boardroom.
Trustee Myers.
Thank you, Acting President. The next public safety meeting will be on 1/10 at 6 PM, and it'll be in the conference room behind me.
Do we have any other? Catch everybody? Okay. Citizen input and public appearance on items not subject to public hearing. Anybody wishing to come forward? Please state your name and address. There is a 3-minute timer. We will be adhering to that tonight. So I will cut you off at 3 minutes. I don't have the button though. Yes, you're on. That one's on, isn't it on? No.
I don't think it's on to answer your question.
Okay. My name is Stephen Wozolowski, and that's Wesolowski. Long name. I live in the Old Farm subdivision at W169 North 10427 Pheasant Run. And I guess I do want to present, but maybe if somebody else wants to go in front of me, only because I really feel that Dean needs to be here to hear what I want to talk about. Everyone did get a packet from me during the middle of the night on what I want to discuss here. And I think it's very important that I have Dean here.
If Dean does not arrive before we pass through citizen input, we are moving on to the rest of the agenda. I'm not sure if we're going to come back to it. So if you want to.
All right, well, then I'm going to just allow someone else to talk first, and then if Dean's here, then I'll come back up. Thank you. Okay.
Anybody else? Further discussion? Or not further discussion, wish to come forward?
Good evening, Scott Heffley, W159 N10514 Old Farm Road, Germantown. I am on the Utility Advisory Committee that met last Thursday, and there were some action items tonight that were on there. My knowledge was, and I know Chairman Miller was part of it, where we're bringing action to the village board. I did review the agenda and saw that we're trying to do an actionable item, which has the village board making a decision. I don't think that's appropriate. I think we can discuss it, but it should go back to utility advisory because there's a bunch of things in the air brought up as a result of a long meeting. So my ask would be, don't take action now, discuss all you want, but I understand we need an entry for Tyler Munis. There's no reason we can't put on 115. We don't need to go to 125 immediately until we do an assessment of where we're at. Why do I say that? Because we have the second smaller of two price increases to get us up to 83% on water. That'll happen in Q1 next year. And we're not on Tyler Munis yet, which we will be. So my feeling is, in the correct channel would be to get through 2 billing cycles in Tyler Munis, reassess in summer, see how the updated, the raised up 83% increase in water affects the sewer utility revenues and all of that. And then if there's still a problem, bring it through utility advisory, recommend to Public Works, recommend to the board, use the correct channel for that. And I've been doing a lot of work to look at this utility advisory things and learning all the time. So I think that's a proper way to do it. We had a very good meeting, productive. And that's what I would do. Don't just go to 125 and have a 10% increase. You're already hitting people with a big water increase that obviously you've gotten input on. So I'll leave that there and let other people talk about it. The other part is on the budget. And everybody in this room by now should know that I'm a budget guy. That's my background, that's my expertise, but it's very difficult for me to follow the budget that we have. So I am desperately hoping that Tyler Munis is way better, because the current way we're looking at things is confusing at best, is what I would say. It's really horrific. It's terrible. I can't even follow it, and that's my background. So what I would say is, when I look at all of these things, and I brought up my budget comments at GGF of what I'm looking at, just a couple things. There's holes in this budget. You passed it. You had to do it for property tax reasons, but we need to revisit this and crunch down. We can't just say it's fine, the numbers will be the numbers when they are, and we'll wait to see an audit. We need to know when the audit comes. We need to have very in-depth financial reporting on that. And the other suggestion I would make, and again, like I've always said before, if I'm wrong, tell me that, but tell me why I'm wrong. I'm willing to be wrong. But when I see that we combined departments, we naturally got rid of positions that were budgeted for decades, okay? We combined departments, we saved some money doing that. We didn't backfill all these positions. So some of the extra money we keep speaking of that's unaudited surplus could be coming from the fact we haven't actually hired people to replace those we had budgeted for 20 years plus. That's all I have. Thank you.
Right on time. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else?
Melanie Smythe, N14W17938 Cedar Lane. Can you hear? Okay. I looked up the Muni Code after going to that meeting on Thursday for the Utility Advisory Committee, just to see what the order was. And they are supposed to just report into the Public Works people, according to the way the Muni Code is written. So it seems like there was a lot of information that was provided. Mr. Wesolowski did a nice job in presenting his packet. He'll probably need more than 3 minutes. And there's some important information in there about issues that we may face in the near future or the future regarding the utilities and the maintenance and repairs. And one of the things that I asked and have asked for before is a look 5 to 10 years out of what the potential for maintaining, replacing, repairing either of both of the utilities might be, and in terms of how we would apply the reserves that we apparently have $8 million or something set aside, or as part of the fund for which those, maybe it's 6, I can't remember, for which those utilities feed into. So I think it's important, especially in light of the problem that Mr. Wesolowski was discussing that occurred on September the 12th of this year, where a manhole apparently filled up completely with clear water. It's a sewer manhole, and that shouldn't happen. And apparently both Germantown and the village of Jackson had equipment and people to rectify it. Now, I don't remember that particular day, but it must have been a heck of a rainfall for that to happen. But I do think that this is an issue that we need to look at as a village. And so once again, I'm asking for the 5 to 10 year look. And those are my comments, other than it was a very productive meeting, but there's more homework that needs to be done as a result. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? I do have one letter. I'll give you a few more minutes because I have one letter. If you start the timer on 3 minutes, I'm not going to get through this whole thing, but I'll take the 3 minutes to go through it. This is from residents, the Schneiders, Mr. and Mrs. Schneider. Please make sure you read our comments at the village board on 12/19/2022. Thank you. Hello, we have some concerns with the issues on the agenda for the village board meeting for 12/19/2022. Approving more expansion in Gateway Industrial Park. Do we really need for more huge, ugly cement buildings? Don't think so, but it will get approval anyway. Doesn't matter what the citizens would like. What will be done to improve the welcome to the village of Germantown on Highway 41 and 167? When go on Highway 41 by Highway 167, it not all welcoming to us at all. There is nothing to say welcome to Germantown. When will this be improved on, now, later, or never? What happens to all the money the village receives from building permits and inspection fees? On what are those fees used for? We have no problem with the stop signs being placed on Concord Road and Nyborg Road. We know what it is like to live on a road like that. We live Bayberry Circle when school is open and parents dropping off and picking up their children since COVID-19. They forgot the rules of the road. It's the me world they live in, and that's all what counts. Yes, we just keep calling the school when we see something wrong. It gets better, then goes backwards again. So you learn when you take your pet out or go for your walk. In the afternoon, you know when 2:55 p.m., no watch needed. Or so because that when they started to line up to pick up their kids. Don't even start about Pilgrim Road 2. It's not good. Summer sewer rate to stop. Funny thing, yes, we remember it being brought up once at a board meeting back at the beginning of the year. Nothing again until the bill came out. Then we realized the village employee who spoke about this before the board did it their way. Things are being done backwards in the village that we have noticed lately. No one says a thing to them until they are caught in the act. Don't you go to the utility advisory board committees first? Also, let the citizens know ahead of time of an increase, not just send the bill. Then the employees are upset because the citizens are not being kind to them about the issues at hand. This could even have a lot worse than this. Just think if Richfield was connected already. That's the 3 minutes for this. There's more if we can post that online, or I'm sure all the trustees have got it. So, any further comments, questions? Mr. Wesolowski.
I didn't use any of my timeouts yet. Just asking.
3 minutes.
Okay, how did we why are we here tonight? And in the one packet I gave you, there's the first 3 pages go over the formulas that we're using to calculate sewer charges. We've always, since 1987, used the first page, which looked at the base quarter, the winter and spring, and used a multiplier of 1.15. Somehow in March, we didn't go to the utility advisory board. We just brought this to the board and we made a change. We changed the base rate to the second quarter. We took out the fourth quarter. Why did we do that? That's having a significant impact on a sewer bill calculation when we're not putting that more additional water into that sewer. Now, I went Thursday to the meeting and And Steve here could have told me that the decisions were already made. I asked the question, what are we going to do here tonight? He says, well, we're going to come up and see what the factors should be. You guys have it in front of you to vote on an additional increase up to a 125. Where the hell did that number come from? So we're again changing things. And in the documentation that was provided by Tim Zimmerman, reasons to do this, well, it's time consuming and difficult for the staff to look at the two summer and fall calculation credits. Time consuming. He sampled 100 residents and I've got that information, you were given it. He simply took a calculation. If you used 135,000, he took out any sewer credit and said, you should be paying me a $900 some sewer charge. Whereas we're now giving the customer $200 some. He said, we lost $700 on this customer, $700. And then he did that for all 100. And by the end of that, he says to the board or to the staff, he says, we lost 55% of our revenue. So that's not true. We didn't put that water in the sewer. Other things that are happening, apparently we surveyed, he looked at see what summer credits are being given to other utilities. They say very little. That's not true. I researched it on the MMSD site, talked to utilities around the area communities. There's at least 40% still giving credits to their customers. Another interesting thing I found this past December 9th, there was an article in the Journal about Germantown households are graveling over utility costs. They're very skeptical of what mistakes were made. And they interviewed Steve Kreitlow in that article. And what I find interesting here is the board voted on this based on what they thought was sound information provided by our sewer director here. There's a comment that Steve Kreitlow said. He says, well, the board failed to consider exemptions for water usage in the summer for sprinkling, gardening, and swimming pools. So what did he do in that article? He's blaming the board for voting it in. And you made your decision based on the information of giving 54%. None of this information that's being provided is logical. And my second document simply, I wish you had have time to go into that, but I've calculated, and the information used in this document, don't tell anybody, is 35 years of water data for 4 quarters. It's all of my water bills. I have every water bill going back to the year I moved in the community in 1987. And that's when we started with our own, with this equation. So in closing, I guess, what I like to recommend to the board tonight is we got to step back. You've got a lot of hostile customers and residents about what was just done here in March. And the impact came out in the 3rd quarter. And I'm asking the board tonight if we can not pass the 1.25 factor. And in fact, we should send this back to the advisory board committee. And I wish Dean was here right now because I would like to make myself available to present information that I've learned on this topic. Last time I talked to you was in 2010 over a crazy topic of recycling carts, but David Baum, Terry, and Dean were on the board. And I think I developed a lot of respect from you three on how I presented my information. A lot of factual stuff came out of those presentations. I've got all the documents here today to show this, and I've been on the phone today with sewer directors talking about plants. The other item that I found is that, the last thing I want to say about going back to what the recommendation for the board, I think what we need to vote on tonight, let's go back to the original equation, Q4 and Q1. Those are base quarters. In my calculations here, you can see by going to Q2, you're exponentially increasing a person's sewer bill. And in the calculations that I do here, based on my usage, and I'm a high water usage, I'm a big gardener, lawn person, and I use way above the average of what a normal residential customer uses. So I think my numbers show a lot of value here. One thing I can show you in the tables here is if you're going to the 1st and 2nd quarter, which can be high users for quantity for me, with the latest equation, you can calculate out a sewer usage rate based on 50,000 gallons of water for me for the 3rd quarter. And I can show you bills in here that for that 3rd quarter, I've been as low as 42,000. So your new program is going to send me a bill for 50,000 gallons of water based on sewer, but I only used 42. Nobody's looked at that into the program. So again, I wish I had more time. I just feel like I should be given a little more time. I don't know if there's going to be a presentation made by Steve, like he did at the Thursday night meeting, but there was a slide that he went through and he showed he looked at usage from 2020, 21, and 22 for summer and winter months. And they're showing that there's a bigger gap there's a bigger spread in the numbers there.
Let us get to the presentation and then we'll.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, is there anybody else for citizen input or public appearance? Anybody else? Anybody online by chance? Okay, we will move on to consent agenda. Board?
Motion to approve the consent agenda A through D.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, that's right.
Jeez, okay. All right, roll call vote then.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky?
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, that brings us to item 8, unfinished business. There is none. Item 9, public hearings. There is none. Brings us to item 10, new business. Zilber Property Group, agent for ZPG Development LLC, property owner of West 210 North 12975, Gateway Crossing, 3-lot certified map application. Director Retzlaff.
Thank you. The Zilber Property Group has submitted a certified survey map for their remaining vacant land in the Germantown Gateway Business Park. It's highlighted on the screen in red. It's approximately 66 acres in size. And the CSM submitted is proposed to divide the land into 3 parcels, including a 17-acre parcel that would contain the existing Zilber 5 building, as shown on the screen on the southern portion of that red highlighted area. And then 2 remaining lots, 8 and 9, 16 and 23 acres respectively. The staff comments with some corrections and access restriction have been addressed and put on the latest draft of the CSM. With that, the Plan Commission recommendation is to approve the 3-lot certified survey map subject to 3 conditions. Thank you.
Board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Business A.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes,
Trustee Miller, Jan Miller.
I have a question. It says in the CSM number 3, I believe, the type and location of access driveway has not been determined.
Correct.
Why?
Because we do not have a site plan that has been submitted for consideration where we can see where the access driveway, if any, frankly, would be proposed onto Rockfield Road.
And so we have, it's just lots. That's it. No construction.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Me.
4 in favor, 2 against. Motion carries. Next item is Eric and Holly Hagan, applicants and property owners of North 120 West 17740 Freistadt Road. Conditional use permit, CUP number 062022 to allow a major home occupation from the property for Hagan Plumbing Services LLC. Director Retzlaff.
Thank you. The Hagans operate Hagan Plumbing Services from the property on Freistadt Road, approximately 10 acres in size. They have been directed to obtain a major home occupation permit, which is processed and issued as a conditional use permit for their operation. The existing services, the hours are Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 4:30. They have a total of 9 employees, 3 resident, 6 non-resident employees who operate from the property. All of the services provided are off-site throughout southeastern Wisconsin. There is an office that is in an accessory building just north of the dwelling unit, as highlighted on the screen in the blue. There is some vehicle and equipment and material storage in a pole barn in the building that is on the north side of the property, highlighted in red on the screen. And the owners, they do live on the property as required as part of the home occupation regulations. They live in the house that is closest to Freistadt Road, as shown, highlighted in yellow on the screen. We have a couple of graphics that we included, some photographs of the site. And this view, the site is behind those trees to the left, and driving from the east heading west. In front of the site, the property is screened heavily with landscaping along Freistadt Road. Again, the property, 10 acres in size, the A2 agricultural zoning. Major home occupations are allowed from properties in the A2 district. There is no restriction on the number of employees, but the operation is required to get a conditional use permit. The Plan Commission recommendation is to approve a conditional use permit for Hagen Plumbing Service to operate as a major home occupation from the property on Freistadt Road, subject to 8 conditions that are included in the CUP before you. 06-2022. Thank you.
Board,
Motion to approve new business B.
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Trustee Hughes. Hudson. I always go with Hughes. Sorry.
How does this jive with the 2050 plan? Consistent or inconsistent?
It's consistent in the sense that we do provide for home occupation operations on property under our current zoning code. The operation has been operating for a number of years. It was only discovered when the Hagens came to the village requesting information about expanding one of the accessory buildings that happens to be near floodplain.
Thank you.
Trustee Jan Miller.
So my question is, when you go back to the map, where is the wetland and floodplain?
There's a navigable waterway, a small stream that runs generally between the red building to the north and the blue building, that wooded area. There's a small bridge and a gravel driveway that goes over that particular area. It's been in place for a long time, frankly.
How long have they had the business?
I believe 5 years.
And what did they want to add on? What did they want to build out when they came to the?
I believe, and it's not part or subject to this particular application, but they inquired about adding on to the building, the accessory building highlighted in blue.
Mm-hmm. So that the blue building, my understanding is that it is in the floodplain. Is that right?
Yes, it is. A good portion of the property is in the floodplain.
Okay, so would that be expandable?
There are allowances for the expansion of non-habitable structures in a floodplain. Since we haven't gone down that path, we sort of stopped at the point of they wanted to expand the building. For what reason? Our plumbing business. Time out. We need to address the use issue first.
Mm-hmm. And was there, I'm not sure, would this go to, was there any kind of a public hearing for this, for the?
Yes. At the Plan Commission meeting in December, there was a public hearing,
Okay.
and
the result?
we didn't have anybody come before to express any opposition, nor did we receive any notices or comments by email or text or letter.
Okay. And so in order for it to be relevant to the 2050 plan, it would have to have these conditional uses. Is that correct?
In order to be code compliant with the zoning code, yes.
Oh, the zoning, okay. Are they here tonight?
Oh, they're not.
No.
Okay.
Trustee Myers.
I was going to add a little additional information that that particular property, before they were in there, they had a landscaping business in there for about 7 years, and they're the ones that added those 2 accessory buildings that you see in the back and in the red area.
Was that, may I ask, was that business ever permitted? Allowed to be there? This landscape?
No, that landscaping operation did not have a permit either. I don't know the status of the building construction.
Okay. Any further discussion? Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, item 8, the CUP shall be valid for a period of 4 years from the date of approval. And after that, it's reviewed. What's the review process? Does that have to go through Plan Commission and Village Board again, or is that just a desk review and if everything's okay?
No, in this case, it would go through the full process. Yes.
Further questions? Further comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed. Motion carries. President Walter, would you like to take over again?
For a new business item C?
That is correct.
All right. Thank you for
They've
taking the
taken the
meeting.
gavel from me.
Thank you. And thank you for chairing the meeting in my absence. Then we're up to new business item C, resolution 43-2022, building permit and inspection fee revision. Give us more information, background on this new business item. We'll turn the meeting over to our Community Development Director, Jeff Retzoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Certain building permit fees and inspection fees for our building code, plumbing code, and electrical code have not been revised since late in 2018. We're effective in January 1 of 2019. Staff has worked with our Safe Built building permit management and inspection staff to review our fee schedule and suggest revisions that would help the village more accurately cover our costs and also to adjust some of the fee calculation methodologies to better address how our costs are incurred through inspections, plan review, et cetera. Proposed resolution 43-2022 contains an attachment that lists all of the proposed fee revisions. Those are highlighted in gray. And as was discussed with the GGF committee earlier, there are changes proposed to probably the most significant items in our fee schedule for new construction. And I guess I would entertain questions about specific items that you may have at this point.
Board, questions? No. No, it's for the board. I'm sorry. Trustee Myers.
Said questions. I had a comment. Can I give it at this time or?
You recognize, go ahead, Trustee Myers.
This came before GGF this evening, which was approved, but to the rest of the board, if you look to page 6 of this document that was presented this evening, and you see at that second to last item that's down below as such, we're talking about where for people who don't apply for permits, which was the last thing that we just had an agenda and a question was asked, was that building asked for a permit? No. At the last Plan Commission meeting, out of the 6 items that were on agenda, 3 of those people did not obtain permits beforehand. And so I suggested to to Jeff that we should triple the fee. So Jeff, I'm glad to see that. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay. Trustee Rick Miller.
Make a motion to approve resolution 43-2022.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Trustee Jan Miller.
I just want to make sure that you had an opportunity to review all of these update charges that you're, I think if I remember correctly, you said this gets reviewed about once every 4 years. So this is sustainable for about 4 years, these increases?
Well, if I could, the last time we reviewed and changed most of these fees was 4 years ago. Before that, frankly, it had been over 10 years before that. My preference, frankly, would be to build in some sort of annual adjustment. And while it wasn't brought up with GGF, if given the direction to do so, we can certainly come up with something that's more reasonable. But the intention is to, at least at this point, we were made aware by Safe Build that some of our fees aren't necessarily covering our costs, and we don't want to subsidize new development necessarily through the general fund. So they made suggestions on how to address that with some fee revisions. And we've done so in this particular schedule.
And you said that you had, our percentage that we get is 38%, and Safe Belt is getting the 68.
Yes, with most of the actual permits, Safe Built, they receive 62%, the village 38%. Plan review charges, Safe Built gets 90%, we get 10%. This is an item that we added in the last year and a half. We never used to have the authority, or at least we had it, but we gave it away, and now we brought it back with Safe Built on board to review plans in-house or through Safe Built in their house, so to speak. And so it's a cost, it's a revenue stream that we didn't have up until about a year and a half ago. And so we accepted the 10% as was recommended by Safe Build. They're doing all the plan review work on that particular aspect of that.
And then the contract comes up next year for Safe
It's an
Belt?
annual renewing contract. If we want to change any terms or cease the contract, we just need to let them know 60 days in advance.
Are you going to be doing a review of all the charges or in 2023?
At
Safe
this
Belt?
point, my thought would be only to review some of the ones we're not addressing tonight. And those would be those that are possibly less significant in terms of how they're calculated and how often we issue them. I mean, some of these permit line items, we don't issue more than a handful in any given year. And there's not necessarily a need to review that fee schedule. But like I said, if the board wants to direct us to come up with an annual increase process, I'd be glad to look into that.
Well, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I think if you're reviewing the contract on an annualized basis, then you could review the fee contract, well, all of the percentage of the increase as well.
We can do that. My suggestion is, if I could be so bold, as to build in an automatic annual increase to some or all of the fees, so we don't have to get into the issue of 4 years or 10 years since things have been renewed.
I think the danger with that is you want to see what the market will bear, and I just don't know the industry that well, but I'm more concerned about the split. What percentage we get. We're at 38. Can we raise it to 40, 45?
Right. I understand what you're saying. And I think it's related, but I think it's a separate issue. And we will definitely look into that over the course of this next year and come back with some recommendations.
So the great items are low hanging fruit, the ones that are are highly sought after permits?
Generally, new development.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to approve? No further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Baum. Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Myers.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye. Okay, next item under new business is item D, ordinance 21-2022, amending the village's official traffic map to add stop signs on Concord Road at the intersection with Nigbird Drive. Larry, anything to add? Okay. Board, any questions? Trustee Jan Miller.
How soon can this be put up?
If the signs are in stock and the poles are in stock within a couple weeks.
Board?
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, motions?
I'd like to make a motion to, I just missed the ordinance number 21, 2022. To put up the traffic sign at Concord and Nigbird.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion. Trustee Kaminsky.
I'm not going to vote for this. We did some extensive research on this at Public Works, invested some money in this research, had our police chief there as part of the research, and everybody recommended that this is not a place for a stop sign. And I'm going to follow the data, which showed we should not have this there. So I will not support it.
Further discussion, trustee Rick Miller.
Yep, completely agree with trustee Kaminsky. I was at every one of those meetings and there's really no need for the sign here. And I voted against it last meeting when it came up, and I'm not going to support it now.
Further discussion. Trustee Jan Miller.
The neighbors have brought this forward for about, I'm going to say 2 years. And it came to public safety. There were tests done. I understand that. And one of the comments was there weren't enough signatures on their petition to get a stop sign. So at the last meeting, we had petitions that were signed. 76 of the 76 households signed the petition to put this stop sign in. So it's needed. It's a narrow road. And sometimes the tests from TAPCO are just one portion of the day. It's not like for a whole week. So I do support this. The neighbors came forward. I think the whole neighborhood did. Thank you.
Further discussion.
Follow
Trustee Kaminsky.
up. Our role on committees such as Public Works is to receive information from the public. In this case, it was a concern about whether that stop sign should be there or not. Our role is to find out whether it should be there or not. We completed our role and we did not do just a tiny thing. We looked at that particular intersection. I think we started in January. We looked at it in the winter months and we had the traffic counter out there. We had the speed registered out there. And of course we paid for this. And we did this to see if we needed that stop sign. And it turned out, I think it was our April meeting, we said one car was speeding and we don't need the stop sign. And then one of the residents said, but summer is different. So we said, okay, we'll try it again when school's out. We did the same survey at our expense once again in response to our citizens. And it turns out there was really no difference at all. We don't need the stop sign. Therefore, we don't need the stop sign. Because if we would respond by petition even, people coming in and saying, I don't want dogs in my neighborhood. I want a new street light on the corner. I want a stop sign here, there, and everywhere else. We're not doing our job. We take that petition and we say, we have a concern here, and we are going to look into it logically. But we should be data-driven. We should be taking the results that we've paid for, which we did here in the course of over 6 months. And I think we reached the right conclusion to say we don't need a stop sign. But our job is to be responsive, but then you have to accept what we find.
Further discussion? Trustee Jan Miller.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying that there wasn't due diligence and that we didn't do the right thing by doing the tests. But if you have a neighborhood that actually lives there 24/7 and have little kids and they're trying to get in and out of their driveways when people are going over 35 miles an hour, 45 were clocked, but some of those were taken out because they're outliers. So I still support the neighborhood.
Final comment, we are a village of neighborhoods. We are a village of these situations. You want a stop sign on every corner?
I haven't been asked by every
Uh-oh.
village neighborhood.
Further discussion? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Miller?
Nay.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Nay. Motion. Next item under new business is new business item E, ordinance 22-2022, repealing and amending chapter 13.37 relating to wastewater measurement and sampling, amendment to the third quarter summer sewer credit for the third quarter billing. Village Administrator.
Thank you. In the packets for the village board meeting tonight, there's quite a bit of information related to this topic from previous meetings of the village board and various committees. Actually, pages 66 through 134 of the packet are information related to this issue. Included in that packet are the reports that were provided to the Public Works Committee and the village board in March when this item was first considered, as well as a report and supporting documentation that was given to the Public Works Committee at their last meeting, and then last week a meeting of the Utility Advisory Committee. Just regarding process, I guess initially, my understanding of the process is that this issue is the jurisdiction of the Public Works and Highways Committee. They're responsible for making recommendations to the board on items related to Public Works and Highways. They did refer a portion of this analysis to the Utility Advisory Committee last week, and there was a meeting where that information was considered. Public Works, at the same time that they asked that item be taken to the Utility Advisory Committee, did refer this item to the village board. So that's why it is here to help to answer the questions of the role that the Utility Advisory Committee plays. I will go through some of the information that was presented. There was a 2.5-hour meeting last week of the Utility Advisory Committee, and I believe there was probably about an hour-long discussion on this at the Public Works Committee, and I'm guessing we don't want to repeat all 3.5 hours of that information, so I'll try to be fairly brief. I'll also answer any questions that the board has. On page 66 on page 91 of the packet is the report that was provided to the Public Works Committee. The previous methodology for the summer sewer service credit was to add the sum of the Q1 bill and the Q4 bill, divide by 2, and then multiply that number times 1.15. That would be compared to the actual meter readings for the Q2 and Q3 bills, and the customer would be billed the lesser of those two numbers. There were several reasons why staff brought this topic to the village board in March. After the retirement of some staff and transition to new staff, we became aware that there were some errors in the way that the old financial software, MSI, had been applying the credit historically. And that was information that had been reported to Public Works and Highway Committee in the fall of 2021. And typically, we were getting 100 to 200 complaints each billing cycle. And it wasn't that staff didn't want to do the work or didn't want to respond, but when you're getting that many complaints every billing cycle, there's something that needs to be corrected and fixed. And trying to correct it and fix it is a reason that we brought it to the village board. We also looked at analysis and numbers that indicated that the old method of the calculation was underestimating summer sewer flows and contributing to some long-term financial challenges of the sewer utility. And one of the goals being to try to avoid a situation like we had with the water utility here recently that required a very large increase in the billing rates by catching these issues earlier, taking earlier action, and creating smaller changes. And then finally, we are in the process of implementing our new financial software, Tyler Munis, including the utility billing system, and we needed decisions on how that summer sewer service credit would be applied, if any, in order to design, implement, and test that system. So the action that had been taken last March by the Public Works and the Highway Committee was the elimination of the summer sewer service credit for Q2, and then a modification of the ordinance to Q3 that was based on the lesser, the actual reading, or a formula that worked Q1 plus Q2 divided by 2 times 1.15, keeping the multiplier the same. But a provision was added that households with a Q1 and Q2 average of less than 11,000 gallons would not receive any credit. And that was done to try to keep the sewer utility whole, since the MMSD charges are based on an average household usage of about 11,000 gallons. Just some of the impacts that took place. We actually did not receive any complaints after the Q2 billing where the credit was eliminated, and those months are April, May, and June, which are a little bit early for most households to be turning on their irrigation system. It did not have an impact that was noticeable in terms of calls received. However, when the Q3 billing came out, we did receive about 300 to 350 complaints. One of the things I did try to emphasize at Public Works, these were not the results of errors in the billing process. They were the results of the change in the policy that took place, that was implemented, the change in the ordinance. Most of the calls that we received were households that did not receive the summer sewer service credit because they did not meet the 11,000 gallon minimum. Moving on a little bit further, as we looked at the nuts and bolts or the core of the analysis that we were able to provide at Public Works Committee, was that the change, the ordinance that was implemented or adopted in March had, I think, a much more dramatic impact on a small number of people than the committee and the board anticipated and that staff anticipated. We did see some customers that were receiving increases in their Q3 bills of several $100s. And in one case, I believe there was one bill that went up $800. And I think that was more significant than had been anticipated when that change was made. So there were 2 different alternatives that staff presented to the Public Works and Highways Committee. One was to try to resolve this issue by providing information on and incentives for customers on the use of irrigation, who use irrigation and sprinkler systems to install deduct meters. And those are meters that attach either to the hose bib or to the irrigation system, and they measure the amount of water that's going into those systems or out into a hose that then is not going into the sewer system. Those meters are read in the process of reading regular water meters, and the bills are adjusted accordingly. The second alternative was to eliminate the 11,000 gallon minimum, but change the multiplier for the credit, summer sewer credit calculation from 1.15 to 1.25. And again, to try to keep the sewer utility whole, as well as make small incremental changes to the fee structure to try to avoid large rate changes at some time in the future. The committee did decide to move the recommendation to eliminate the 11,000 gallon minimum while increasing the multiplier to the full village board, and also asked staff to take that issue to the Utility Advisory Committee for additional discussion and review before it went to the full village board tonight. I will just then maybe turn your attention to page 70 in the packet is a few of the slides that were presented to the Utility Advisory Committee. There were several other topics on that agenda as well. But the primary question that was addressed at that committee is whether or not the change in the multiplier from 1.5 to 1.25 was reasonable. Is that, I think as staff, I think any of the engineers on staff or others would say, we can't tell you that it's accurate that either 1.15 or 1.25 is accurate for all specific households.
Is it possible for you to present what you're talking about so everybody can see it?
I don't have this on PowerPoint at this point. I'm jumping around between multiple presentations to try to pull this information together in a concise manner. Some of the key facts on this that some folks may or may not be aware of: sewer bills are based on water meter readings. Sewer usage is not metered in most households. Outdoor water use increases during the summer months. We also have analysis and data that shows that indoor water use increases during the summer months. The summer sewer service credit, as ordinance currently stand, is based on the average of Q1 and Q2 water meter readings, increased by the multiplier to try to adjust for that increased indoor water usage. On page 71 of the packet, there is a chart that shows the increases in lift station 1 and 2 flow. These are the Wrenwood and the Altbauer lift stations. And the summary of the analysis that we were able to find comparing 3 winter months to 3 summer months is over a period of 3 years, is that increase in lift station flows ranged from 17.8% to 75.2%. So there's a significant amount of variation. There's a lot of, statistically, I would call them confounding factors in this analysis that result in that wide range. The average increase in the lift station flows was 36.7%. And again, some of that would probably be external factors like infiltration and inflow, as opposed to only increased household water usage. With that, the recommendation of staff is that the multiplier be increased from 1.15 to 1.25. Again, there are alternatives before the village board tonight. We are in the process of implementing the Tyler Munis billing system. We do need to go forward with the design on that. If we go forward with the elimination of the 11,000 gallon minimum, and either the 1.15 or the 1.25, we do have flexibility to change that number in the future. That number is not carved into stone in the system or even written in cobalt like our old billing system. It is something that could be modified in the future, either later this year or in future years. So the board does have flexibility on that piece if you do go forward with the elimination of the 11,000 gallon minimum. The other comment that I would make regarding those choices is that it's important to note that the amount of additional analysis that staff can provide is limited. There are a number of variables that play into the increase in the flows in the lift stations that could be studied statistically to a great extent, and we may not have any more confidence in a number, whether it's 1.15, 1.2, or 1.25. We could hire external engineering firms to do that analysis and present that information to the Utility Advisory Committee, the Public Works and Highway Committee, or the Village Board. But again, in my experience working on issues like this, there is limits to the level of certainty that's able to be obtained. So I think staff is moving forward with that recommendation, and that there is evidence, there is documentation that shows that 1.15 is lower than should be, and 1.2, the increase to 1.25 would cost the average household about $13 or $14 per year in additional charges, and would be an incremental step towards maintaining the health of the sewer utility. So that was longer than I actually meant to speak, so I'll pause and see if there are any questions.
Trustee Chan Miller.
When you're speaking of staff, who are you speaking of
The
specifically?
well, it depends on which particular item.
The sewer.
Well, there's a group of staff. There's myself, the village clerk treasurer, the utility billing clerk, the sewer superintendent. At times, as we've been going through this issue, the water superintendent has been involved in discussion. There have been components of this that the public works director has had input into, as well as the village attorney, actually.
Okay. But your resident expert would be Tim Zimmerman, correct?
He's the expert on some of the issues and has been a significant participant in it. I would also note, just for information, if anybody's interested, the spreadsheet in the March packet that was presented was actually not prepared by Mr. Zimmerman. It was prepared by someone else on staff, and I don't believe it's important or appropriate to try to point out specific people on staff and put them on the spot for those issues.
So is that particular data that was in March packet in our packet tonight?
Yes.
And what page?
It'll take me a moment, but I can find that.
And then it was stated tonight by one of our residents that the current formulation, please correct me if I'm wrong, of Q4 plus Q1 divided by 2 times 1.15 has been the plus 2 summer credits, has been the calculation since 1987. Can anyone confirm that?
I believe that is correct. As far as I know, I don't doubt that that's correct. Yeah, until March of this year.
March,
yeah.
and you put the 11,000.
And actually, the spreadsheet that was in the packet that was presented in March is on page 105 of your packet this evening.
And could you refresh our memories about what is the status of the sewer budget account? I thought there was 6 to 8 million.
There is a The fund balance
Yes.
for the sewer utility is approximately 6 million, yes.
And why, was it higher than that? Why are we trying to increase the sewer? What are the projects that we're trying to do? That's what I'm trying to find out. What do we need the money for? We just hit all of our residents with an 80% increase in water.
Right, that was for the water utility, and
Understood.
you can't use water utility revenues for sewer purposes or sewer
Understood.
utility revenues for water purposes. I believe that one of the advantages to the village is to eliminate borrowing. With those reserves have been used, for example, they've paid for an interceptor sewer project lining that was completed at about $3 million a couple of years ago. They'll be used for a sewer main replacement project coming up in 2023. And with a healthy level of reserves, the sewer utility is able to avoid borrowing and the interest costs that go along with that. That would be a choice for the village board to draw those reserves down over time and then borrow for capital projects, but then we would be incurring interest costs.
Well, my concern is the problems that have occurred with utility bills is not new. It's not new this year. It just didn't happen. There have been utility billing questions for a couple years, would you say, Deanna? A year and a half, whatever.
Or longer.
Or longer.
Probably longer than that, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. So the most important thing, as I'm looking at the village and going forward, is the Tyler Munis product and getting that online. If we haven't gone, we've been able to do projects for the sewer and save money at the original formulation. Why do we need to change it at this time? We've already socked the residents with the water utility increase. They will be getting another one in 2023. So perhaps we should keep the formula as it is, knowing we can always change it once it gets into Tyler Munis. But the work has been slow as far as, recapturing some of the information that was lost. That was slow. Things are, I don't even know if everything was recaptured and entered. So I think we have a lot going on with fewer people. I'm concerned about that.
I don't know how to answer that.
I'm taking that as a statement of your position and not a question for me.
Yeah. And we do have fewer people on staff, correct?
We have the same number of people. There's been some reconfiguration of staff, but we have the same number of people. If you took the total of the finance department and the clerk's department, it has the same number of people now as it had prior to the retirements that we had in 2020.
Can I just ask, when you say to keep the same formula, you're talking basically to go back to the formula before it was changed in March, or to keep the formula as it was changed in March?
No, the original, because there was the original, not the March, because you put the limit, you had to meet the 11,000 gallon, and I was part of the conundrum with that. If you're a smaller household, you get penalized. That's how I saw it on my bill. And I think others did.
Trustee Jan Miller, you still have the floor if you need it.
That was my comment.
Okay. Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the meeting last week of the Utility Advisory Committee. It was my first meeting with them since I was appointed in April, and we unfortunately did not have a quorum. That committee requires 4 people be present for a quorum, so we could not take any action. However, I think the discussion was very good. We had participation from residents, we had participation from staff, we had participation from the committee. And I can't speak for the committee because we didn't give any recommendations, unfortunately, but the overall feel that I got, and like I said, I'm not talking about the committee, but the overall feel I got is, yes, forego the minimum 11,000 gallon requirement to get the summer sewer credit. Blackstone Creek got hit pretty hard, and why did they get hard? They're kind of a retirement community, not really, but there are elderly people in there, and they're gone for half of the year. So guess where their water goes in the winter? It goes very low. And I think they were hit harder that way because of their general population over there, demographics. But it brought something to light, and that is that, unexpectedly, we affected a lot of households with that minimum amount. The other thing is that Mr. Weslowski, he was here tonight too, and brought us some packets. He spoke in length at our meeting, and I thank you again for all that information. Art Zabel was there and brought some information too, and some very good information. And I think, again, the overall feel was that we're not really convinced that that rate multiplier should be increased to 1.25 yet. I think there's some more work that needs to be done, or some review of that. I, for one, Mr. Weslowski, didn't get the chance to look at this quite thoroughly yet. I had some Christmas stuff going on this weekend, but.
What?
But anyway, but to give the Utility Advisory Committee a little more time to look at this, meet again and discuss it. I think I'm looking for myself, I'm looking at short term. Let's do something short term. Let's get these people, get the bills corrected for the third quarter. And then we'll devise a plan for a long-term solution for this and the rates.
Is there a motion?
I can make that a motion.
You can.
So I will make a motion to forego the minimum 11,000 gallon usage to get the summer sewer credit, and also retain the rate multiplier at 1.15.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
What is the rate multiplier that you're referring to, Rick?
Well, that's what it's currently at.
I'm sorry. What's the formula? The what Q? Q4 plus Q1?
So I'm only foregoing the 11,000 gallons. I personally, I'm not going that far to go to Q4 and Q1 again. Q1 and 2 seem to have worked. Again, that's all can be reviewed, but for this particular quarter, I think the thing is we forego the 11,000 gallons. We get the people, the citizens' bills corrected for that quarter, and then we look at it long term and see if we need to go back to Q4 and 1 or keep Q1 and 2 for that average.
So your motion is Q1 plus Q2 divided by 2 times 1.15.
Yeah, the only thing that would change is forego the summer sewer credit.
Okay.
I'm sorry, forego the minimum 11,000
gallons.
gallons. It's like saying daylight savings time,
Further discussion. Trustee Myers.
I was just wondering, Steve, don't we have a separate fund for painting, redoing the water towers? Isn't that a separate item?
There is in the water utility fund, there is a separate reserve for the water tower painting.
I think that's over 500,000.
It is over 500,000. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but it is over $500,000.
Thank you.
Sure.
Further discussion on the motion. No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Hudson. Trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Myers,
Aye.
Walter.
Aye. Okay, next item under new business is item F, report on employee retention. Who's got this one?
This was an item that was added to the agenda at trustee request. It was actually information I was putting together for the performance review for item H on this evening. Support Services Manager Aaron Hearn had put this information together, and we do have a brief presentation that she can go through if the board would like.
Board?
Yes.
Okay. It'll save time in the
That's what we
closed
told you to
session.
say.
Hi, thank you. So I just put this really brief chart together about the retention. This is just for 2022. So in 2022, we only had about, I'm sorry, quick math, 26 staff retire. 42% of those were, I'm sorry, 26 staff resign. 42% of those were retired. 11% moved out of state, and 46 changed jobs due to either increase of pay, career advancement, or because they could be closer to home. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, there we go. Okay. From a study that was conducted by Mission Square, our results are very similar to the national average. So most people, I'm sorry, this is very small, 51% of people leaving their work are for compensation-related issues, and 36 retire. It fell in line with our chart as well. They also had a chart that just shows the level of local governments and their employees and how the rate or the amount of local government employees leaving their positions has increased quite drastically since 2020. Going back to our results, just to get a department breakdown of what our resignations have given us, is about 42% of people leaving public safety jobs, 35% leaving public works jobs, and about 23% leaving village hall jobs. As you can see, public works and police department are the two highest in that category. However, we've been able to fill a majority of the jobs that have left. If you look at the national averages, it looks like about 78% were engineering, 75 were police, and 73 dispatch, which is very similar to our current situations. Going further into the exit interviews, so I give every employee opportunities to have an exit interview. Not everybody takes that opportunity, but a majority do. Out of those exit interviews, I've seen a lot of different information that's come out of there. We've had a lot of positive response about the cooperation in departments, supervisor relationships, job satisfaction, respect from coworkers. Some of the areas that need improvement are opportunities for advancement. Department morale is probably one of the highest. And then training received, which wasn't the worst, but we have been working on that as well with SIPMIC now being our insurance carrier. Oh, I don't want to leave that one. Sorry. And then on this next slide, it shows the supervisor ratings, which were pretty high. Some other questions that came up during these exit interviews were consideration of reemployment, which 11 out of the 12 that took these exit interviews um, would consider reemployment. Adequate recognition came up as being a high one for people needing more recognition. Also, the being paid at adequate salary and support of management. So these were just some areas that were questioned during the interview, and these are their results. Now, I know that it doesn't look like a lot of the exit interviews were taken. However, just because I only have 12 here, there were some lost during our server crash, and those were, I was not able to get back. So even after going through my emails, it was a little difficult. But I do keep adequate records of this. Now I keep it all too, where I can get charts and graphs pretty easily. So I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Thanks for putting this together, Aaron. It was my question, and I started this as a committee agenda item. And actually, Aaron got back to me and said, I really didn't have enough time to do some deep dive. But my questions were, how many Village of Germantown employees by department have left in the last 3 years, starting with 2020? And what was the reason for leaving? And how long was the employee employed at the Village of Germantown? Did each employee have an exit review? If so, who conducted it? And what were the results of the summary? So you have a lot of information, and you hit most of the points, but we don't have any comparison, and it's not broken down by the department. Yeah, let's. Well, you have 42% retired, but it doesn't.
No. I have a chart that says the department breakdown. So there were 2 in the year 2022. There were 2 from the clerk's department, 1 from the community development department, 2 from engineering, 2 from fire, 6 from highway, 9 from PD, 1 from rec, and 3 from sewer.
But there's a difference between retirement and resignation.
Oh, you wanted which ones retired? Oh,
Yeah, because that's, I mean, that's the end of your career and you're, looking forward to retirement versus actually leaving for moving out of state or changing jobs or something like that. I think the retirement is a completely different reason. So that's what I wanted to take, because people are always retiring for whatever reason. Hopefully, they're going to have a fun life. So
I
we
think it's
already,
a pretty even distribution though between those departments about resignation and retirement.
well, the police had about 5 or 6 retirees.
Out of 9.
Yeah, that's a lot. So, I would like to do a deeper dive into that. If you could get that, can you get that other information from the other years?
Yes.
Okay, that would be great. And I think it would be, I think as we change roles or as people come and go, what it's supposed to help managers retain people. That's what it's about. And so how can we take a look at the data and then make adjustments to morale and advancement opportunities, et cetera.
And that's one thing my department, my role does. So I do go through these and I make, I have things that I'm going to pass out to our managers after these surveys are completed that we can go through. I try to give employment or opportunities and talk with department heads all the time about different ways that we can do advancements or educational things for their employees. So we do go through this. We already do this internally.
Right. But it's not necessarily always because of money, is it?
No, it's not always because of money. Nope. You know, what I'm seeing throughout the public sector in general is a lot of people are moving around, not only because they can, because the opportunities are out there, but they're trying to find places closer to their home and closer to their family. Because after this whole COVID-19 debacle, they found what's more important to them. And so they're trying to get closer to their family. So that's what I found with a lot of people, even if it is that they're getting an advancement or a promotional opportunity, it's also primarily because they're closer to home.
Right. And
And
there's
so
been a lot of illness and they're trying to get closer to help.
Yep.
And then the only other thing was on 141 on the positive responses. There is no graph line for supervisor relationship.
I'm sorry, there's no what?
If you look at the right side, it says positive responses.
Mhm.
And there should be 5 lines in there. Supervisor relationship is supposed to be red or orange or
I think one was the exact same response as another, and so it just overlapped it.
well, that would be interesting to understand.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I can't remember which line it was, but I remember seeing two of the exact same response.
Yeah.
And so it just overlapped each other.
So I'd still like that other data if you could.
Any other questions? Trustee Myers.
Is it possible that when you recommend different areas to actually go, if we could actually see that also in a graph in the future?
I'm sorry, which,
In other words, when you ask employees in different areas what they would recommend in regard to changes and so on, and then you said you examined these to see, and I was just wondering if you could compile these together as such in addition to this report or separately.
So when you get the answers, anonymous answers for why you left,
yeah.
just compile it so we can see what the.
So you want any
That's not
verbal?
what I was looking for. What I was looking for is when you come up with new suggestions, if we could see what those are, that's all.
If I come up with new suggestions?
Yeah, isn't that what you said? Am I wrong? I'm sorry.
I don't think so.
There was a situation when you asked employees on different things where they could be better in different areas,
Yeah, I'm constantly working with departments. I mean,
but then you come up with suggestions after that to change, correct? That's what it's looking at.
it's something that happens over time. I don't think
No,
it's.
no, I understand.
Okay.
But if there's something that you see in a particular year that would be good for whatever the situation is, if we could see a report in regard to those, that's all.
I could put something together about my annual.
Annual, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Sorry, I
Nope,
wasn't
it's okay.
explaining myself very well.
Nope, it's okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? Trustee Hudson.
I don't know if this is the format for this or not. So if it's not, somebody just let me know and I'll stop. One of the questions I have is you have the numerics of the people who left in the individual departments, which I appreciate. And I don't know if this is doable or not. So if this is not a realistic request, somebody please let me know. What I would really like to see is the percent of turnover rate, right? So, some of those departments are obviously bigger than others. So if you have a large department and a lot of people leaving, you could still have a smaller turnover rate than a smaller department. You've got the numerics, not the percentages. I'd be very interested in seeing what those percentages are, if that's not a onerous task. So we could compare turnover rate department to department. I don't believe that retirement should be broken out. Leaving is leaving, and in the end, it'll wash over time. And then the other question, and this is probably not doable, is can we see trending data? And if so, how far back in the past can we see trending data for? Or is that not a possibility?
It'll just take me some time, because with our current MSI software system, we have one option for retiring, but then not everybody who
You can't put a term reason in?
it wasn't utilized in that fashion. So, and some people who retired were put in as terminated, so then I have to do a backtracking.
Sure.
You know, there's just some work, whereas these people I all know and I've sat down with personally, so I know why they've retired. And so I can use that data.
A
easier.
term, not just retired. Right.
Retired and terminated, yes.
And by termed, I don't mean fired, term.
Right, no, resigned,
Clear.
yes.
Thank you, yeah. And then lastly, percent of employees that do exit interviews and don't. So I assume you're offering the opportunity to do an exit interview to every employee.
Yes, I try to.
Circumstance that,
Oh,
that
yes.
they have left or not? What percent of the people are taking us up on that offer?
Well, and that's what the data that was hard to take, because I know I have sat down with some of these people and I wasn't able to find their exit interview. And I'm assuming that it's because it was lost during that short server time period. We actually had a lot of people leave during that time. So I'm thinking that's where I probably scanned it in and it got lost from that server.
Maybe this is more of a computer. Are we going to be able to access this information and have useful data, or are we looking at?
Yeah,
or not.
Like I said,
it's not a criticism. Right?
No, yeah. Like I said, you know, once this server crash happened, you know, I've started putting all that information now into a survey so that I can see that in a separate system, not on our server, so that it can see that data regularly. So yes, I mean, we do have adequate data that will.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Further questions? No further questions? Thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
Next item under new business is item G, 2021 audit update. Village Administrator?
This was another item that was added by trustee request. We do not have a new presentation on this. We included in the packet the presentation that we gave, I believe, in September, and we can just give a brief update. The information, the data that was lost has for the most part been restored. There may be some items which are going to 5% or less of items that are going to take longer to be able to address, but the large bulk of the items have been restored. The trial balances for the 2021 year end have been completed and forwarded to Baker Tilly, where they are currently under review. And we, hope to get feedback from Baker Tilly in the very near future and help them conduct their field work to complete the audit process.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So what is in your packet includes information from August, the information from August, if you see the dates that are on there. So in reality, the maybe between funds have changed, but the bottom line totals of what has been expended, that has not changed. Because think about that as the bills have already been paid, that part is done, but the inter funds may have changed.
Questions? Trustee Myers?
Do you have any idea that audit might be finished? Report it back to us.
No.
We've not heard back from Baker Tilly yet about what their schedule looks like. And it depends on when they're available to do their on-site field work and complete their review.
Would you, just as a guess, would you think maybe end of January?
I really can't guess. I don't know what I know that this time of year is a very busy year for them, busy time of year for them, and difficult to get on their calendars.
Yeah.
The holidays and so on. Thank you, Steve.
And we're not their only customer too? No. So, yeah.
We should feel that way, though. Trustee Miller, Jan Miller.
Thank you. So I was looking at the presentation that's in the in the packet, and it says you got a late finish of the 2020 audit, and that was why you got a backlog in 2021. Okay, and you made a statement about the 8/12 date. You're thinking that that report had included all the entries and payments? Is,
Correct. So think of it as the bills have already paid. They're already paid. They went through the GL already. What we're talking about now is just between funds, if that makes sense. So,
yeah,
okay.
okay, between the funds within the village. Okay, so then the, are you still experiencing software problems with MSI?
Every day?
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And then, how much of your time do you think is manual versus actually data entry, or your staff? You want to just like 50/50, 60?
100, all of it. It's very labor intensive and very detailed. Surprises or mysteries that
Yeah.
need to be looked up. Yeah.
You feel like a private investigator, right?
Sometimes, and
Yeah.
sorry for the brutal honesty, but that's what it is.
We're just trying to understand. And then the staffing shortages that you've experienced, you said you had 2 vacancies this year. Did you fill both?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
And right now, I believe I've really got a quarterback or a pitcher on the team. He does fabulous work, helping me very much. So I'm very, I don't know if proud is the right word of my staff, protective of them, thankful for them. A lot of the reports you see is due to their hard work.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we appreciate that.
So I feel very protective of the work they do in their time.
So you have temporary accountant. Was that the CLA guy?
Correct, and we had more than one
you did?
CLA person that came in, yeah.
Okay. So, okay, because I heard one left. Okay. Um, is the implementation of the Tyler Munis, is that moving forward on the time scale that you, because there's a chart in here.
Yeah, best we can, and actually that chart might be one of those might be before, well, that was probably after the data loss, I'm trying to remember, because that did affect us and the timing
Yeah.
before.
It says we're supposed to be on the utility billing by that Q1 of 23.
They're going through parallel billing right now.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So, are you, do you have any confidence that you have picked up or recouped the server crash data?
I would say for the most part, however, there are some surprises that come across like, oh, I thought we did that, or it was done twice. So a little bit of both.
Still going. It's ongoing. And I was really I was surprised at the different areas where really the data loss affected payroll and accounts payable and receivable ledger budget. And then we don't have, the good news is Baker Tilly picked up all the information for the audit for 2021 and they're reviewing it. Is that right?
Correct.
And if I could just clarify, the data that was lost related to like payroll or accounts payable or accounts receivable was 2022 data.
Right.
It was, we did not lose this item here, as we're talking about 2021
Yeah,
audit.
I jumped.
Okay, no,
Okay,
just
thanks
wanted,
for clarifying.
in case anybody listening was.
Um, uh, I think that's all. I don't know, there was a slide about explanation of 2021 year-end surplus. But we wouldn't know that until the audit gets back, right? Confirm.
That is correct. However, again, most of those, I'll say those bills have been paid. So we're talking about the interfunds. If that
Okay.
makes sense to you.
Because of the cutoff on the 812.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
and then it just goes to interfunds. All right,
If I
is
can.
that right?
That's, yeah, no, I think, just to clarify that a little bit, what the village clerk treasurer is talking about is the transactions have all been completed and are all entered into the system.
Right.
The things where there could potentially be changes are the allocations, or in the system they're referred to as interfund transfers of things like employee healthcare benefits or earnings on investments could shift from one fund to another. But the bottom line is unlikely to change.
Thank you.
Other questions? No other questions? Next item, under new business, is item H, Administrative Performance Review Process and Criteria. The village board may enter into closed session per Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85 subsection 1 subparagraph C for considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate. And second closed session for tonight is Resolution 37-2022, disallowance of claim. Nancy Rydell, the village board may enter into closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85, subsection 1, subparagraph G, for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, and then may reconvene into open session and take such action as it deems appropriate.
Motion to go into closed session for H.
Aye. H and I, and H is to include whom?
If I could suggest if we do I first, and have the village clerk and clerk treasurer and the village attorney, and then I think I'm on my own for H.
Then my motion would be to change that, please.
Go I first and then H is your motion?
Yes.
Did we have a second?
As suggested.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, and so the first one will be including I, will include the village clerk and the village attorney along with the village administrator, and H will just be the village administrator. Any discussion on that motion to approve? No discussion, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Myers, Trustee Baum,
Aye.
Trustee Hudson, Trustee Kaminsky, Trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Before we go into closed session, the next regular village board meeting will be on Monday, January 16th, and that'll be the year 2023 at 7 PM here at the Village Hall Boardroom. For all those still watching and for all those that are either streaming or still within the sound of my voice, may I wish you all and your families a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I think I speak for the board that we wish that your holidays are safe and that you have an enjoyable time with your families. So Merry Christmas to all. Have a good night. Turn off your microphones, please.